So, good day, Dr. Zuraida. I'm Ng Chin Hui. Today I'm going to talk about ASD, which stands for Autism Spectrum Disorders, and also Asperger syndrome, which is under this ASD umbrella. So, Asperger syndrome, which is named after the Austrian pediatrician Hans Asperger, who described certain kids he treated, at his time to be, clumsy in their day-to-day social interaction, and he described those kids to be troublemakers who caused untold worries to their caregivers. It was during World War II when he published a report on this subject in German. Then later in 1976, it was psychologist Lorna Wing who first used the term Asperger and popularized it to the English language medical community. So in 2016, fast forward, there are an estimated 2% of American kids in America who have ASD or Asperger's, and male or boys being the majority. On one end of the extreme end of the spectrum, we have the classic nonverbal, tantrum throwing kid who has difficulty learning school subjects, languages included. The child may only know and speak a limited amount of words in his or her native tongue. The child may be hard to control for their parents, like we've seen it, right? Always yelling out loud in gibberish and making a scene at home and making a mess at home and also out in the public, right? The child may have to depend closely on a caregiver or a guardian for most of their later life in terms of carrying out basic functions like communicating their needs, talking, eating, and handling, sanitary issues. Along the spectrum, there are many other symptoms that which the child I was talking about undoubtedly also has, right? But the characteristics and traits vary in severity. So Asperger's, which used to be a separate diagnosis, a separate category on its own, is now included on the ASD spectrum. So personally, I was diagnosed in 2013 with Asperger syndrome, for example. So I am also counted as someone on the ASD spectrum. So ASD, like the name suggests, is a spectrum of symptoms and conditions that an individual faces or experiences on a daily basis. Right? Early symptoms can be observed by a professional psychologist or a psychiatrist in an infant, baby infant as young as 1 year old. The child may avoid eye contact. They would look away when their name is called. They would display general delay in language development, have very narrow interests. They would engage in a lot of imaginative activities. I did a lot of that growing up, making some kind of, theater show in the living room using stuffed animals. Anyway, also, an ASD child would generally display slower learning skills and thus the delay in language acquisition. They would pick up language atypically, though, through echolalia, which is a phenomenon of repeating sounds, of certain words they happen to like. This could result in limited, rigid language skills. I did that with English DVD movies when I was a kid. But in some cases, the child may end up having sophisticated vocabulary at an early age. A child with ASD also has a strong sense of routine and rituals. They only eat certain foods, in a certain order. They like to walk a certain way, on a certain path. They watch only, the same few TV shows. They love only, certain smells, and they're repulsed by many other things. If they face a situation that is out of their ordinary routine, a situation that has no clear schedule or expectations, it could result in an autistic meltdown. These situations represent like a lot of stress, right, and frustration to them. I've been there. Like, I dropped out of uni before. I'm gonna now shift to adults. So there are adult individuals all across the world who have milder symptoms, like having trouble making any friend at all, keeping a job, keeping a relationship, carrying out different daily tasks. They find it hard to start a conversation, and sustain a conversation and keep it going, just mainly due to their very restrictive and narrow range of interests, and perhaps many failed previous social encounters. I've had many, and some of them are associated with selective mutism, which meaning talking only to one or two people that they trust and like. I had that too. But when they do find someone who shares their same the same interest, they could be very talkative and even dominate the conversation with their one-sided verbosity. I could talk about X-Men or kung fu movies and some certain anime movies for hours and hours. Just off the top, I can think of these things I love. Adult, they usually have repetitive behavioral patterns, which include hand flapping and hand scratching, or even head banging against hard surface, or hair pulling, etc., which could lead to self-injury. More than 65% of autistic adults are reported to have anxiety issues, depression, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorders, right? And suicidal behavior is also higher among autistic adults. Apart from that, people with ASD are considered to be clumsy, right? I am clumsy. They're considered to have no abnormal posture, gestures, and they are seen as awkward and withdrawn in general. So people on the spectrum have narrow interests, I said many times, but these interests are extremely strong interests that they hold on to. This sign or phenomenon is called monotropism, which means a tunnel vision-like focus on specific subjects. The cause of ASD is still, the causes are still very much uncertain as of today. The scientific community has discovered a few factors which could increase the chance of having an ASD baby. They postulate that it could be due to both genetic and environmental factors. So parents who give birth to their children over the age of 30, or parents who have insufficient prenatal and perinatal care are all considered high risk. These situations could lead to a child being born with neurological or even anatomical abnormalities. Parents who have a family history of mental health issues could also, of course, produce children with ASD. So on the environmental side, the period from infancy until adolescence is a very critical, crucial maturation process for any child. Any external factors like bullying, domestic violence and abuse, physical, verbal, emotional, could bring about severe changes in the child's brain. This could change the neurotransmitter activity in the brain of a child, causing imbalance in dopamine and serotonin levels. Dopamine and serotonin are mood hormones that control, mold, and shape a child's emotions and personality. So nowadays, in pop culture, the ASD issue has been getting more and more attention. The term ASPI is the most common term that most people on the spectrum identify with and call themselves. There's an increasing amount of activism work focusing on, to change the public stigma and perception of ASD and encourage the term neurodiversity, which suggests that ASD being not a disease and it's nothing to be afraid of. Well-known people like Susan Boyle of the great X Factor singer back in 2008, Eminem, the very famous rapper, right? Woody Allen, the director of many artsy movies, Anthony Hopkins, the Hannibal actor, Robin Williams, the late actor and comedian, R.I.P., Satoshi Tajiri, which is the name of the creator, the Pokemon creator. So, and the recent teenage environmentalist from Sweden, Greta Thunberg, who made a lot of headline news, they're all on the autism spectrum. So, one of the best movies I've watched is called Mary and Max. It is about the wonderful, very touching friendship or pen palship between a little girl in Australia and an old man in New York, both of whom are lonely individuals on the autism spectrum. I highly recommend this stop-motion animated movie. Also, a recent movie starring Dakota Fanning called Please Stand By. It has also a great depiction and portrayal, representing autistic adults in real life. Right? So there's no known cure to ASD yet. However, medications and therapy sessions are believed to have the ability to lessen, some of the struggles such as inattention, anxiety, depression. For instance, I take medicines called sertraline, and fluoxetine every single day just to help me be a little more cheerful. The medication can only alleviate some of the pain caused by the symptoms. It cannot, however, treat the core, the long-term, lifelong expression of autism or ASD. Early intervention is by far the most effective treatment. This includes, intervening a child's behaviors using the reward system method, giving reward. Also providing a buffer period for traumatized children by modifying the environmental factors like bullying and abuse, or removing them completely altogether, which is very difficult to achieve. So in closing, I want to say there should not be any taboo around ASD or mental health issues. People shouldn't suffer in silence. We should bring awareness to these issues, and progress will be made. Thank you.